What up, though? You already know how it goes. Smash, like, subscribe, comment. I don't care what you comment as long as you comment. Let's jump right into this. Tammy Sperle worked in the prison store at the Huron Valley Men's Facility in Washtenaw County. Herndon worked at the prison store for about 4 weeks in the summer of 1994. At least part of that time was with Sperle, though Sperle evidently had no complaints about Herndon's conduct. She asked prison officials to reassign him to another position elsewhere in the prison when an injury Herndon sustained prevented him from being able to lift heavy items as the job required. When removed from this position at the store, Herndon filed a grievance. He also tried to be reinstated at the prison store several times, with the latest attempt being on December 13th, 1995. Now, when you file a grievance, it's a piece of paperwork that says that you're not being treated according to the rules, because prison has rules too. Just because you're a prison doesn't mean that you have rights. So you file a grievance, and then when the hearing officer hears the grievance, he says and determines if you're right or wrong. And usually they don't care if they're going to find you wrong most of the time. At approximately 11:30 a.m., prison employee John Jeffrey spoke with Sperle on the telephone, but when he walked past the prison store at 11:45 a.m., he noticed that it was closed. When Perry Taylor, an HVMF employee who worked in the prison warehouse, went to the store at 1:15 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. to deliver supplies, he discovered Sperle's body on the floor. Sperle was lying on her back. Her arms were extending, and she was surrounded by a pool of blood. Taylor used his key to enter the storeroom from a hall, but saw that another door that led to the front entrance of the prison yard was open. When he saw Sperle's body, Taylor immediately notified the correctional officer sitting outside the door that Sperle needed medical attention. Harvey Dutcher, a hearing investigator at the prison, responded to the calls for help. He observed that Sperle looked as if she had been beaten badly. Her face was bloody, and some of her teeth had been knocked loose. Dutcher checked for Sperle's pulse, and when he did not feel one, he started cardiopulmonary resurrection, but failed to revive Sperle. When Lola Garland, a resident nurse manager at the prison, arrived at the scene, she performed mouth-to-mouth resurrection while Dutcher performed chest compressions. She observed that Sperle's chest did not rise and inspected when she blew air into Sperle's mouth. Garland believed that the victim was already dead because Sperle's skin was pale and cold. Dutcher and Garland both noticed a cup of instant soup lying on the floor a few inches from Sperle's body. James Whiteman, a nurse at the prison, joined Dutcher and Garland in less than a minute after he received the distress call. Dutcher and Garland were already performing CPR on Sperle, but air was not entering Sperle's lungs. Whiteman, who observed that Sperle's facial bones were broken, tried to open Sperle's airway, but noticed that a cord was bound around her neck so tightly that it was embedded in her skin and not visible to a casual observer. Wow, that cord had to be so deep in her neck. Whiteman then cut the cord off Sperle's neck and again began to perform CPR. He or another medical professional who responded to the call for help administered medication to Sperle to stimulate her heart, but Sperle never regained a pulse. Because Sperle's neck had become so swollen from the cord wrapped around her neck, Whiteman and the emergency trigonometry on Sperle in the hope that they would be able to get air into her lungs. The emergency medical professionals continued to attempt to revive Sperle as they transported her to the hospital, but never succeeded. Sperle was pronounced dead at the hospital. Prison officials sounded an alarm at 1:45, according to Sergeant Lee Boardman and Ronald Koch, resident unit officers in Herndon's housing unit at HVMF. The alarm required prison employees to lock all doors and secure the inmates in the cells so that the employees could account for all the inmates. Neither man knew why the alarm had sounded, but they were instructed to do a dorm-to-dorm search to determine if any inmates had abrasions, marks, or cuts to the hands. Boardman and Koch both observed that Herndon had cuts and bruises around his fingers and knuckles. He was the only inmate with wounds that looked fresh. After checking the other inmates, RUO Koch and resident unit manager, which is the RUM, Dennis Hammond, returned to Herndon's cell to ask him how he injured his hands. When Herndon gave conflicting stories, they placed him in handcuffs and took him to a segregation area. where Herndon was strip searched and his shoes were confiscated. Prison officials subsequently searched Herndon's cell and seized a blue jacket with dark stains, a pair of green gloves, and a pair of damp gloves. Their investigation into Herndon's whereabouts before, during, and after the murder revealed that following the prison store committee meeting, HVMF staff checked Herndon into his cell at 10:35. Herndon was released for lunch at approximately 11:55 a.m. and did not return to 12:50 p.m. That's almost an hour. Even though he was only supposed to be gone 35 to 40 minutes. At 1 p.m., Herndon was released unescorted with other inmates to go to field house or to the yard. Irvin Brown, an inmate who worked in the prison laundry in February of '96, was able to account for some of Herndon's time on the day of the murder. Brown said that Herndon brought him a soup approximately 10 a.m. Herndon then approached Brown in the laundry room at 1 or 1:15 p.m. Brown thought that Herndon looked nervous or tense and had some blood on his face, which Brown removed with a soapy towel. Herndon reportedly asked Brown to wash his jacket and a pair of gloves, which Brown saw had blood on them. Brown asked Herndon if something was wrong, and Herndon purportedly replied, "Don't worry about it. The less you know, the better." Herndon then left the laundry, but returned approximately 45 minutes later to retrieve the laundry jacket and gloves. At the time, he gave Brown a pair of pants and a shirt to be washed immediately. Brown saw what appeared to be blood spots on the pants and told Herndon that he wanted to know what was going on. And Herndon replied, in a few minutes, they were going to find a body. Brown said that he put the shirt and bloody pants in the blood pathogen hamper because the police did not go into that hamper. But before he could wash the clothes, the emergency siren sounded and he had returned to his cell for the inmate count. The prison was locked down for the next 4 or 5 days, during which the time Brown learned of Sperle's murder. He then contacted Rum Hammond to reveal what he knew. Brown showed Rum Hammond Herndon's bloody pants, which were in the hamper. DNA analysts conducted as a part of the investigation into the crime revealed that Herndon's pants, jacket, and shoes had blood on them that matched Sperle's body. Fingerprint analysts revealed that one of Herndon's fingerprints was on the soup container that was lying on the floor next to Sperle's body. Herndon, who testified at the trial, disclaimed any part of the murder and denied that the shoes and clothing introduced into evidence belonged to him. He explained that following the prison store committee meeting, he gave inmates Brown and Johnson soup samples. According to Herndon, he injured his knuckles when he passed the soup through the food slot in Johnson's cell. He also said that he did not go to the dining room on the day of the murder. Instead, he went to the day room and had his soup sample for lunch. He was locked up from 12:45 p.m. until 1 p.m. when he went to the utility room to play chess. When he heard the alarm, he returned to his cell. Because his theory was that another inmate killed Sperle, Herndon called several other inmates to testify regarding who they believe had a reason or opportunity to commit the murder. For instance, one inmate stated that he saw inmate and prison store worker James Frear, who worked nervous, sitting on a bench near the prison store at around the time of the murder. Also, 2 weeks before the murder, inmate Stephen Foster, another prison store worker, reportedly threatened to kill Sperle. And on the day of the murder, he cut himself shaving and used a towel to wipe away the blood. Despite the evidence on behalf of the defense, the jury convicted Herndon of Sperle's murder. Now, for you guys that don't know, in prison, when you're serving a long sentence or you're very institutionalized, all you have is your religion, all you have is your gang, all you have is your job, and you love it to death. Those guys are so institutionalized, it's ridiculous. When they have a job that they like, they love it. They will miss a parole meeting to go to their job because that's all they have. Why is it like that? I don't know. I don't know at all. But this is the most dangerous inmates who kill prison staff, part 1. Peace and blessings be upon all you.